I want to sincerely thank you all for allowing me to practice live out the first few months of my priesthood here at St. Bridget. It's been a real honor for me to be able to see God's work in your lives. I have the privilege to be an instrument of God's mercy and His grace, and to see Him working in your lives has been one of the best times of my life. So thank you so much for having me and for your welcome at St. Bridget, where it's just full of life. I love hearing this church right now. It's awesome. And it's just full of life, and I thank you so much for all that you do to build up this community. This Sunday, I'm reminded of a recent visit this week that I made to the elementary school for lunch. I went to our cafeteria and sat down with one of the classes, one of the first grade classes. And as they spouted out random facts about themselves to me, one of the girls turned to me and she said, "You know that boy down there?" She nodded to him so he wouldn't notice, though. I said, "Yes." "Well," she explained, "his name's Luke, and I chase him around at recess and tease him." Very honest, confession time. Well, knowing the answer, I asked, "And why do you do that?" She said, "Because I like him, because I'm going to kiss him as my boyfriend someday." I was glad to know the childhood techniques of expressing affection live on. You know, honestly, I was impressed by this little girl's self-awareness. She acted in a certain way, and she knew the desires behind those actions. She was chasing her classmate at recess to get his attention and affection, and she was aware of that. My brothers and sisters, today the Word of God invites us to consider the reasons for our actions, to ask ourselves, what is driving me in the way I live? And when we ask ourselves that question that says, what is my motivation? What do I live out of? We find that the answer can be reduced down to two things: our desires and our fears. Our desires and our fears. We largely live the way we do because of our desires and our fears. These two things form the way we think about ourselves and others, and our relationship with the world, and especially our relationship with God. To understand this, we must come to understand our relationship. What is it we desire? What is it that we fear? In today's readings, we heard about the Hebrews who made a golden calf to worship. We heard about a son who went and squandered his father's money and inheritance. We heard of a son who refused to join his family in celebration. These three actions, making an idol, living indulgently, and scorning the return of a brother, were driven by desires and fears. And what is it that they desired? The Hebrews desired a God that they could see and worship and follow. The prodigal son desired freedom and pleasure. The older, angry son desired the appreciation and the love of his father. And these are not bad desires. These are good and natural things. But the problem is these desires became warped and disordered. And more often than not, desires become disfigured by fears. The Hebrews feared that Moses would not return from the mountain. The prodigal son feared that he would not have freedom working with his father. And the angry older son feared that he was not loved by his father as much as his brother. Fear drove them to seek out and to fulfill their desires in sinful ways. Fear caused them to doubt that their desires, their deep desires, would be fulfilled. My brothers and sisters, What are your fears? What are your desires? We all have things that we want and desire. We want our families to be healthy and happy. We want our work to be productive and fulfilling. We want to know that we are doing good jobs as parents. We want to be appreciated. We want to know that we are lovable. We want to know that we are doing God's will. Most fundamentally, we want to live in freedom. Freedom that comes from being the beloved children of God. A freedom that lives out of the loving gaze of the Father for us. But don't just let me tell you what to desire. No. What is it that you desire? What is it that your heart is longing for right now? What do you yearn for right now in your heart? Deep down, what is it that you seek, that you need? What do you desire? Is it peace? Is it safety? Is it rest? Is it love? What is it? What is that one word that describes your deepest desire? Now, as we ask ourselves this question, inevitably doubts and lies creep in. Fears that tell us we will never have or see or know what we desire. But my brothers and sisters, I tell you, these are lies, these are fears, and they are from Satan. He causes fear. He tells us that our deepest desires will not be fulfilled. He, of course, lies. He is wrong. And we reject him. We reject his nagging voice. We reject his lies. We reject these fears, and we send them to the cross of Jesus Christ. We give them to Jesus to be crucified with him. Because Jesus tells us, do not be afraid. Fear not, little flock, because it is my Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Like the prodigal son, we realize that we've been living out of fear, and it has led us nowhere. So we return to the Father. Come back to the Father who gave us our deepest desires, because he wants to fulfill them. We may find it hard and painful to return to the Father, because it means that we first have to be honest with ourselves, that we have to acknowledge our fears and our wounds and our desires. This is hard and this is painful. But go anyways, because in fact the Father sees you. He sees us a long way off, and he runs to us. He has compassion, and he comes to embrace us. My brothers and sisters, offer this Mass with your whole heart. Make this the greatest prayer of your life. Cast your fears to this crucifix and place your desires upon this altar, so that all things through the sacrifice of Jesus may be lifted up to the Father.